Welcome to Q&A, Questions Need Answers. I'm your host, James Munch II. Most people call me Munch. This is a space for honest conversation, critical thinking, and community dialogue. On this show, we talk about community, culture, and politics. And today, I have none other than Miss Bonita Jones-Peabody. All right? She ran for judge before, and she's running for judge again. Okay? Some things, if you don't get it the first time, it's okay. But that shows the dedication. You know, that this is something she really want to do. And I want y'all to get to know her. I know her, a few of her family members, so just putting that out there, you know. But I want y'all to get to know her as I'm getting to know her, because I don't know her like that. I'm just being honest. I did it. I think it was the watch party last year.
Yes.
It was the watch party.
Yes.
Where I got to know you a little bit more. And it's a couple other folks that I know that advocate for her. And on this election season, I said, well, why not? We interviewing everybody. We giving everybody a platform, because I think, you know, not just for my audience or what my perceived audience, I think it's good for everybody to get to know who are the people in our neighborhood that are doing things. Outside of running, you've been doing this, right? You've been
Yes.
advocating and doing things for us.
Definitely.
We, you know, on our last episode, we had Kenneth Kilpatrick speak highly of Miss Peabody. So on this show, we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, and a little bit about yourself, how you got started, things of that nature, and then we'll go from there.
I am Bonita Jones-Peabody, and
Looking at this one.
running for Circuit Court Judge in Miami-Dade County in Group 69. It's punch 129 because it's time. It is time that we had a judge who understands communities, understands culture. That is why I am running for judge. As a young lawyer, I had a case where a young man, African American, was accused of hitting his mom. Now, I'm gonna date myself a little bit because y'all probably don't even know this. And when the father came into the court and asked the judge to release him, the judge rightly said, no, the mother's not here. She's a victim, she's not here. The next time that the court met, the father came back with the entire family, mom, uncles, aunts, everybody was there. And so I said to the judge, something's wrong with the way the police wrote this report. This is not accurate. So the judge, being, you know, with a little cutesy kind of thing, said, well, I suppose that they're the Waltons and all is peaceful on the mountain. So you got to understand who the Waltons are. You may not know who the Waltons are, but it was a television show back in the day that was a white family, included the grandfather, the grandmother, about 10 children, mom and dad. They lived on a mountain called Walton's Mountain. Country. Country. So now he's calling this African-American family
The Waltons.
the Waltons, this white country family, this urban African-American family. And so the sister got upset. She said, we ain't no Waltons. I had to calm her down because judges have contempt power, right? So when I calmed her down, I turned back to the judge and I said, Judge, this is an African-American family standing in front of you. He slammed down the gavel and said, you will apologize to me immediately. I said, for what? He said, for calling me a racist. I said, Judge, I didn't call you a racist. He stormed off the bench, called my supervisor. I was working at the public defender's office during that time. My supervisor rushes over. Bonita, what'd you do? I don't know what he's going through. There was an intern that was working in our office, happened to be white. And he said to the supervisor, well, what about him calling that family the Waltons? Supervisor's like, he did that? I said, yes. So the supervisor calmed the judge down enough to talk to him. And when I talked to him, I said, Judge, I wasn't calling you a racist. What I was saying to you was that this is an African-American family. And had that young man hit his mom the way the police wrote it up, Dad might have come by herself.
Yeah.
Mom may have come by herself. But it's a sure bet the whole family wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And if they had, he wouldn't have looked as good as he looked standing up there.
Yeah.
Because that would have been a no-no.
Yeah.
And that let me know at that moment that the person who is sitting in the judgment seat has to have some understanding of the culture of the people that they're getting ready to judge. Because had that judge had that would have never been a conversation that needed to have been taken place. So I decided at that moment that I needed to do everything I could to be prepared. So I left the public defender's office soon after that, not much longer after that. I went back to work for the Miami Times for a brief period. And then I went into private practice. And I practiced just about every area of law. I did family law. I did probate law. I did administrative law. I even worked behind the scenes, going back into as an assistant general counsel, writing memorandums of law for judges who had questions on the law. And so in that capacity, I had to think like a judge. I had to be a neutral arbiter. Because with the lawyer, lawyers choose a side. When they choose that side, they advocate for that side. Now, I am a fighter. So when I choose a side, I fight hard for my side. But as a judge, I'm out of the fray. I'm the referee. You know, I want to make sure that all the constitutional safeguards are in place. And I did that. And then I went back to the public defender's office and stayed there until 2025. And then I left and went into private practice again. But, you know, not only have I practiced law for 35 years, but I've also been a part of this community. At the age of 12, I was a Model City Youth Commissioner. My neighborhood, Gleyview area, the principal didn't want us to play at Gleyview Elementary School. There was no park in the area. But there was an abandoned dairy farm. A lot of people don't even know that there was an abandoned dairy farm that was over there. And I made the suggestion in that Model City Commission meeting that they create a park at that abandoned dairy farm so that kids would have an opportunity to play in the park. And that's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park today. So as a young person, I was doing that. Now, you know, I'm from Miami. I was born and raised here. My mom was born and raised here. My older brother, who's my mentor, was shot. And I know the devastation that happens with that because it caused my family to go on a downward spiral. My family, my parents trying to figure out how they're going to build this child they had that was shot, and much of his hopes, much of his opportunities now destroyed. Brilliant mind. How do we get him back? As a result of that, we didn't know about opioids then, but the painkillers that my brother was taking in with that caused him to become a drug addict. My other brothers going to jail. I became a teen mom. But I still had parents who said, your responsibility, you're going to take care of that baby. As a result, my son went to the University of Florida with me. I graduated. I came back to Miami to work for my hometown paper, as I saw it, the Miami Times, and got married, had my daughter. 4 years later, that marriage failed. My 2 children went with me to the University of Miami's law school. I graduated on time, each time. And then I started working. And I have worked in this community. I've done those things to show myself approved. And I'm here now, asking for your vote, saying that I'm qualified to do this.
So let's take it back a little bit, because I've heard the story about you being a cub reporter, is what they call it.
Yeah.
At Miami Times. So what did you go to University of Florida to study?
I went and I got my degree in journalism.
Okay.
Public relations and criminal justice and journalism.
Okay. And so from there, that I guess that led you into the field of actually becoming an attorney. How did that? What was that journey like?
I always wanted to be an attorney. You know, I was raised up with those 5 boys, and my brothers used to call me Perry Mason, right? Because my father, and I tell this story to jurors, you know, because when I'm trying to get a feel for the jurors that are there, my dad was from Alabama, and he was such a sweet soul. You know, he wasn't urban. He was, you know. So my father had this thing that one person would lie on you, but not 2. Not 2. So my brothers, I'm a girl smack in the middle of 5 boys. And I'm my daddy's, you know, I'm my daddy's, his everything, because he's my everything. I'm a daddy's girl. So I could get my way with my dad. My brothers would get upset about that. So they would conspire and lie on me, you know, and so I had to make sure that my dad understood that they were lying on me. You know, I couldn't physically beat them. So I had to have evidence, you know, and I would say to my dad, well, you see here, you see what's going on here, you see this, and I would make my case for my father.
So it started early, huh? At home.
So they started calling me Perry Mason. They credit themselves with making me a lawyer as a result of that.
That's a
Yeah.
that's a dope experience because you had a lot of practice.
Yes.
You had
I
a lot of
did for a
practice at
long
proving your
time.
case. So, I guess going into what's the biggest difference? I guess you explained it. The biggest difference from being a judge, being an attorney to wanting to become a judge is having to remove yourself,
Yes.
right, and be kind of like neutral and seeing both sides of the situation. So I guess in yours, what is 69?
Yeah, Group 69.
Group 69. Can you explain? Because I really don't understand none of this stuff as a young person. I really don't. I don't get in trouble. Like I said it before, I don't get in trouble. I don't really understand the different groups and the circuit court and all. I know that we got the 11th
Judicial Circuit.
judicial circuit is one court compared, like, in other places that's like Polk County may got 3 or 4. We only got 1. So can you explain kind of like that landscape a little bit?
Sure can. The 11th Judicial Circuit is a big circuit. It's one of the biggest circuits, if not the biggest, in the state of Florida. In our circuit, there are about 134 judges. So each one of those judges has their own division within a division. The circuit court, with the circuit court judge, that judge could be assigned to the juvenile division. Juvenile judges are circuit court judges, and those judges handle delinquency as well as dependency. Delinquency is when the child has been accused of a crime. Dependency is when the child may have been abused. So it's two different separates, but it's both juvenile. They also have unified court, where there may be different areas of law that are coming together in one family. So rather than have them going to, say, for example, juvenile and then divorce court or child support, everything is handled in that one unit.
Okay.
There's also criminal court, which most people know about. And then there's family court. There's also civil court. So a circuit court judge could be in any of those capacities. A county court judge would handle, the county court is considered the people's court. So in civil, it handles a smaller monetary amount. So you might be able to, like a landlord-tenant case would be in county court. But a mortgage foreclosure case would be in circuit court.
Okay.
It's a difference in the nuances of it, but and it's all biblical, when you think about it, because if you studied your Bible and you know the story of Moses, Moses was out there trying to solve the disputes of the people, and his father-in-law Jethro said, "You're going to kill yourself doing this. You need to get some people who will hear the smaller things, and you save yourself for the bigger things." And that's kind of like, the way that it goes.
Civil and the circuit, yeah.
Before, earlier, the judge would move around in the circuit, right? Now the judges stay in place, but it's still called a circuit court. Broward has its own circuit. Dade has its circuit. But within that circuit, there are many different judges. I tell people all the time that becoming a judge, the robe, because that's the difference, judges wear robes. The robe is not a reward. It's a responsibility. And it's a responsibility that should weigh heavy on the person wearing it, sort of like a weighted blanket. It's wrapped up in the Constitution of the United States of America, wrapped up in the Constitution of the state of Florida, wrapped up in the statutes of the state, and also in the criminal procedures or civil procedures of the state as well, administrative law as well.
So in Group 69, what would you be dealing with specifically?
So there's different, like each judge has a different division, like I was saying. In my group, Group 69, Judge Richard Hirsch is retiring. So because he's retiring, that leaves a void in that particular section that he was working in. There are 2 other opponents that are in this group. So it's what's known as an open seat. There are other people who are also in the race who have maybe just 2 opponents in it, but it's a different group. There may be, someone may have challenged a seating judge. Each judge that is and the judges, and let me back up a little bit too and say this. Judges can become judges one of two ways. Either you're appointed by the governor or you run and allow the people to make the choice. Okay, so if you run and the people make the choice, you have a 6-year term. So you don't have to run again for 6 years. When that 6 years is up, someone may challenge your seat. And if they challenge your seat, then you have to run too. So there are some seated judges who are also running, but they're in a different group.
Okay.
There are no judges, no incumbent is what they call them. There's no incumbent judge in the seat that I'm sitting in, that I'm running in.
Okay, so moving forward, how do we research judges' records and things like that?
I wouldn't tell you that it's easy because the work that judges do generally is one case at a time. So unless you know the person's name, and then when you know the name, you got to know their date of birth, all that indicia, you're not going to know exactly what has happened in that particular case. Most times what a judge does is behind the ivory tower, as they say, unless you come, because the Sixth Amendment gives every criminal defendant a right to a public trial. So you can come into criminal court at any time. You should be able to be in there to see for yourself what happens. Most people don't come. They don't come to see what happens in the court itself. In the civil court, yeah, you can, but a judge can somehow block that depending on the sensitivity of what's going on. For example, if it's a situation where there's an adoption, you cannot come. Only the people that are a part of that adoption, and that's a happy experience, are there. It may be a family court with sensitive issues. And if it's a family thing with sensitive issues, you may not be able to be in there. But you have a Sixth Amendment right as a defendant to a public trial. And so with that being said, judges is the work of a judge. You've got to know who it is, unless it is a high profile case. And if it's a high profile case, you'll get some of it, but not all of it. Even when it's court TV, you don't get all of it.
You don't get all of it.
And then evidence will also keep some of what is happened in that particular case away from the public, because the jurors don't get to see it.
So you saying, not to cut you off, but you saying that we don't necessarily always get the full picture of these judges that are running, and
You don't.
Yeah.
But you can get some.
Okay.
When you Google the name, when you go on the web page, when you start looking at what have they done in the community, what outside of law, what have they done, and have they had a cross spectrum? Because every judge race, there's a big race now going on in Miami Gardens, Opelika, somewhat of the city area that's going on now. That's a heavy burden that they have, but a judge's race is all of Miami-Dade County. I was down in Florida City on Friday. It took me an hour and a half to get there. But what have they done in the community? You can Google it. Google them. See what they've done. Because it should be there. You won't be able to get the personal information of a judge, and they do that,
To protect, yeah.
But you can see what they've done in the organizations and the affiliations, and what have they done in the bar? What have they done? That kind of thing. I told you about me being a teen mom. I started a not-for-profit named after my mom. Education means more access. Emma is the acronym of it, my mom's name, to assist teen mothers in having the support they need to get their college education or their vocational education. Because I know how tough it was for me to do it without that kind of support. But a mom on my back saying, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And just making sure that access is available.
What was a case that you like? What case, like, made you want to become a judge? Was like, it's like absolutely imperative to take this next step to become a judge.
That one I talked about originally with the young African American male.
So you always wanted to be a judge. You just
Early
was
on.
like early on.
Early on in my career. But I did not feel that initially I was prepared. I didn't think that just coming out of law school would have prepared me for the role of a judge, because it's a heavy role. And so I wanted to make sure that I educated myself on the various aspects of the law. And then when I initially wanted to do it, life happened. You know, I had a husband that got gravely ill, was 2 years sick, you know, and could not move, could not speak, had to be turned every 2 hours after having a stroke. I had to make sure my husband was okay.
Yeah.
And then he died. You know, he was the love of my life. This is my second husband. We were boyfriend and girlfriend at age 9. You know that. I like you, you like me? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. And after he died, it took me a while to get my feet back up under me, you know, to move forward. And I had given up on it. But part of this legacy that I wanted to leave was that not only did I supervise young attorneys, but I trained them in the public defender's office. And one of the brilliant attorneys that my hand happened to touch called me up one day and said, how about let's go to lunch? And we went to lunch and we were talking, and he was like, you know, do you still have that dream of being a judge? And I said, yeah, it's still there. And he said, well, why don't you do it? And the last time I ran, he was my campaign manager. You know, this time I have attorneys that my hand was on, brilliant attorneys who are involved in it, who are working very diligently with me with this campaign. And that's part of the legacy, because I knew that this is work that I would not be able to do always. So I wanted to train people who may not necessarily look like me, may not even have grew up the way that I grew up, but I wanted them not to be cloned me, but that I would be able to bring out in them excellence, so that no matter who stood next to them, that they would handle them the way that I would handle a client standing next to me. And that is with excellence.
Outside of like the cultural competency, what are other, I guess, characteristics, components that or that you possess that you feel is absolutely needed as a judge?
I'm a listener. I listen well. I make decisions. I believe in being prepared, not wasting people's times. So I'm going to be on time. I'm also going to handle expeditiously the work that is before me. Not only do I hear people, but I see them. I know through experience that what's written on the paper is not the end of the story. And when I went to journalism school, I chuckled because I remember just now, when you saying this, one of my professors wanted me to do news editorial as opposed to public relations. And I said, why? Public relations is, you know, that's the sexy aspect of journalism. And he said, well, for one reason, you're nosy. You know, so I like to find out about people. I like to talk. I want to know, you know, how did you come to be? What happened here? And I'm not just looking for you to just tell me the words. I want to see it in the surroundings of it. You know, let's talk about this. Let's what excites you, what causes you to be deflated, what, you know, all those things that make you you. It's not just this one dimension. You know, no one is just one dimension. You know, we are complicated beings. You know, so I can have the dichotomy of being a good person, yet there's some aspects about me that, you know, you may not like. And I like to explore all of that aspect
when making a decision.
when making a decision.
And so how much discretion, because we talk about like trial juries and things of that nature, but how much discretion do you have as a judge on a day-to-day?
Judges have an awful lot of discretion. Judges deal with the credibility of the witnesses and their testimony. They determine who is telling the truth and who is not telling the truth. And a lot of the law hinges on that.
How do you determine that?
You
You just by listening? Because I mean, is it like that mother or that grandma that just sit there and just let you talk and you kind of like try to put the story together, but like this ain't adding up?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You went with those children,
Yeah.
And in any aspect, think of it. One of the things that I would do in the training the attorneys that I did was, what song or what movie do the facts of this case remind you of? Can you see it in there? And then you can start, once you've gotten that, when you got a theme of where you're going to go with that, now you can say, that don't make sense. This makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then come on. Mm-hmm. Come on. We gotta rewind this thing. Because this right here doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And so when you talk about discretion, like, is that because a lot of times we just think everybody gets into a trial. So what are those certain particular situations where it's just you and I guess the witnesses and the plaintiff defendant? What types of cases normally that you would have to deal with where it's not going to trial or whatnot?
Well, there are two things that in a criminal case that a defendant gets to decide. Mm-hmm. One of them is whether or not they will go to trial or if they will take a plea. Mm-hmm. The other thing is whether they will testify or not. Mm-hmm. Everything else is a strategy of the attorney. Mm-hmm. The defendant, the person who has been accused of the crime, participates. You want to, I as an attorney, I would not be able to do a trial unless I have talked with that client. If I've sat in the seat, because I want to make sure that I understand where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. Why is this important to you? I've learned as an attorney when I've had a client that is just fixated on one little thing, and I'm like, that's not important. That's not important. I've learned, why is this important to this client? I got to step back because something about this is probably the whole key to this case. And I'm overlooking it because I don't see it. Mm-hmm. So now I got to step back and try and sit in my client's seat so I'll see it through my client's eye. And now I can tell a better story because I now understand the connections that are going on here. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I have a very dear friend who is minister of music, and he's always saying, I don't know how you guys build a case, how do you go through a trial, and I told him it's very much like what you do when you do your music. How do you take someone who maybe is not the best singer and you make them come out with this beautiful sound coming from them? Mm-hmm. Or you with your podcast, mm-hmm. How do you take it from nothing? Mm-hmm. We sat here, it was nothing. And now you got an interview together and you're going to put the pieces together, and it's going to come out into something that people will be able to see and enjoy and, mm-hmm. Get some knowledge from. Mm-hmm. It's all in the work and the art of the professions that you're in. Mm-hmm. Law happened to be the profession that I had a passion for. Mm-hmm. It was a thing that made me want to get up in the morning, mm-hmm. Because law touches every aspect of life. Yeah. And I heard what you said, when we started out, and you said, I don't know much about these things, but everything that you do, mm-hmm. your podcast, law touches it. Mm-hmm. The bookstore, mm-hmm. law touches it. Where you purchase your property, mm-hmm. law touches it. The chair you're sitting in, mm-hmm. law touches it. The sneakers we're wearing.
Yeah,
'Cause
law.
I'm getting paid, and that's why I got bad on.
Yeah.
Law touches it. All of it. Every aspect of life, law touches it. There are not a whole lot of professions that can say that, but law touches everything.
Yeah.
And it's not just criminal law. It's
Civil is business.
yes,
Yeah.
the cruise ship when you're going out to have your vacation.
Yeah.
All of it,
Everything in the fine print.
everything.
Yeah.
The disclaimer,
Yeah.
all of that. It's all in there.
So I guess as a judge, what are some things like I around, like you have more control around like sentencing and things of that nature, right?
For the most part, there's a sentencing, guidelines that come in depending on whether or not this is a person that has committed other crimes, whether there's mitigating factors involved, like how gruesome was the crime, did that person try to render assistance? Was this an accident that happened? All of those factors go into it, and that's generally called a mitigation package that someone prepares so that the judge can see it. There's also things like victim impact statements, where the person that has been aggrieved, that person that's lost a loved one, or that person whose loved one has been injured, or the person themselves may say, this is what happened to me, and this is what I think should be, happening. But ultimately, it's the judge that makes the decision.
So you make the decision at the end of the day.
Yes.
If they don't go to trial, of course, on what happens with that particular individual.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they go to trial and the jury says, pronounces guilty, then the judge also deals with the sentencing.
Anything else that you would like to say that I'm probably missing, that's important about being, becoming a judge?
Becoming a judge, it is a responsibility that not everybody can handle. Not everybody should be a teacher, but some people get into it for wrong reasons. I think they might get into it because it's considered prestigious, or they might get into it because, hey, I got to do something with my life, and it might as well be this. Being a judge says that I want you to know me because you should know the person who's going to sit and hold the scales of justice for you and your family. Being a judge means I'm a part of this community, and I want to see this community thrive. I want to see it prosper and do well.
How do you, when it comes to sentencing, I've seen, maybe on social media and like YouTube, I've seen judges make different, just take an alternative route. They hear the story, they kind of listen like you said, and they be like, that's not the right course of action. I don't know, 'cause sometimes I just believe it's just TV. I don't know how much discretion you have when it comes to those type of situations. So can you walk us through,
Sure.
in like Miami-Dade County, what are some alternatives that you would probably look at in particular cases?
One of them, Mr. Kilpatrick was here. That's not in the sentencing part of it, that's in the beginning part of it. The alternative programs is an alternative to incarcerations. Georgia Jones-Ayers was my godmother, and she founded that program because keep in mind, when a person is arrested, they could lose everything. So there are specific rules that says what a judge is to look to when setting bond for that person. Danger to the community. Is this person a danger to the community? Does this person have community ties, family members that are here? Is this person a flight risk? Will they come back to court? That's what bond is for, to make sure that they are coming back to court, not for punishment, because keep in mind that it's at the beginning stages of it. Now, as far as the sentencing, if this is a first time that a person has committed or accused of committing a crime, I should say. Pretrial diversion, pretrial intervention. Pretrial diversion with county court, pretrial intervention with circuit court. And what that is that it takes the person out of the system and says you are going to go through a course of programming, supervision, and if you successfully complete it, then the case will be dismissed against you. Okay, that's one of the alternatives. Another alternative is that that person is given probation, where they're put on probation, they're told you can't do this, you can't be around this person, you have to do what the probation officer has instructed you based on what the judge has sentenced you to do. That generally comes with a cost. All of these programs generally come with some kind of cost involved, monetary. It could be house arrest. That could be a part of the sentencing too, where you know your ankle monitor. That can be in pretrial and sometimes post-trial, where you can't go within 500 feet of certain places. You can't go out of your house. You know, house arrest pretty much is your house becomes your jail. You know, so those are some of the alternatives to it that would happen with it, and they're fashioned in other ways. Judge Steve Leifman, who was one of my trainers when I first started, has a mental health court because, you know, we don't like to admit it all the time, but there are a lot of people who need some mental health therapy, you know, and I think that some crimes that are committed by people because they're dealing with that. They're trying to deal with it and make sense of it, you know, and we need a healthy community. We do. So we need to see what are some of the, how can we fashion other alternatives to the incarceration process itself. You know, it may work, it may not, you know, but I think that what we have in place, you know, right now with the Constitution, you know, I love Thurgood Marshall, you know, and he said that we have improved on it. The Constitution was supposed to be fluid. You know, that's why we got amendments to the Constitution. But you got to be in it. You got to be in it. And I'm loving the fact that as a young adult, you're here asking these questions, and that the young people are going to be engaged in it. To see what happens with it and to be a part of it.
So I work with I just finished a cohort with Reform Alliance, which focus on folks that are just as impacted. And one of the things they're focusing on right now is the Safer Supervision Act, which, and I know you're not in the federal system, but that talks about, and I learned a lot about how, you know, a lot of things are in the language and how these laws are written in the language. And so, you know, shall and may means two different things. You know what I mean? So what are some things that you have come across in your you know, experience as an attorney that you feel needs to change in our system, our current system that we have?
Well, in answering that question, I'm going to say this, that being a part of the Criminal Procedure Rules Committee, that was one of the last things that I did in that committee, was be a part of changing the language to bring it up to more modern standards. You know, taking out the shalls and the thous and making it the you, and, you know, this has to happen, or this may happen, or it has, you know, as opposed to the shalls and the thous, so that people will be able to understand it in a modern language kind of thing. Changing the system, I think that the jury system is probably the best system, because what it does, it takes it back to the people. It takes it back to the people, and the people decide who, what will happen to a person. That jury system, I think it was brilliant that the founders of this nation came up with, because it's a jury of your peer. It's supposed to be a jury of your peer. But if the peers won't participate, then you have a system that's messed up. If we don't get in it, how we gonna win it?
True. And then talk about that selection process, because I watched it. I learned a lot watching the I think the show was called like The Lincoln Lawyer, and they was talking about the jury selection process, and like there was a trial. Like one time I always did my jury duty, but I never get picked. Like I never, and it was one that I really wished I did. I kind of like was like, I'm gonna miss work, but I was like, I really wish I did, and I thought it was interesting. It was like a case involving, it was like, I want to say it was a lawsuit. It was a like personal injury lawsuit, and like who was gonna be responsible, because the security guard was there, and then it was a truck driver, and the truck driver backed up and I think hit somebody, and the security guard was there, and the company was putting it on the truck driver, and it was just weird. And I just like, I thought that was just so interesting, and I was truthful, but they didn't pick me. And I was just like, and I felt like, why wouldn't y'all, like, they always say it's like tricks to it. Like, oh, just show up and try to be impartial. They'll pick you. And it's like, no. But then you learn, like, no, they want you to be somewhat, on one side. That's how because each side get to pick who they need to pick. So, do you see any fallacies in that process, or like you just, or is the fallacy the fact that more of us are not participating?
Well, there have been case law that has come down that deal with that, because Neil Slappy was one of the first that came out with that, where they were excluding African Americans from juries that they could have been on. That still happens a lot. Unfortunately, it does. With you being an African American male, young male, many times you're going to have a situation where in the vetting process, maybe it's the prosecution that's going to think, well, you're not right for this, because you may sympathize too much with someone that may be more in line with you. And so, but they only get each
so
side.
many exclusions.
Right. Yeah. They only get so many. So if you are in it, you're going to be able to be a part of it, and you got to be in it. And it's fascinating. The law is just absolutely fascinating. I love that portion of the trial that's called the voir dire, because I like talking to people. I like interacting with people. And I generally say to a jury, this is a portion of the trial. Most things in law are Latin-based, but this portion is called, and it's a French term, voir dire, is to see and to say. So that's why we're seeing you, and this is the only time that the lawyers get to talk directly to the juries. And so then I tell them that you may not be the right juror for this particular case, but it's a sure bet somewhere in this courthouse you're the perfect one for it. So you may not be the right one for this particular case, but you sure bet going to be good for some jury in this courthouse. But the more of young people that participate, the peremptories will end, and you'll be in it. You'll still be in it to make those decisions. And too many times people want to be out of it. They don't want to be in jury duty. Like you were saying, you don't want to miss work, but, I'll miss work.
Yeah.
Do this, because this is part of your civil responsibility. Miss the work.
Yeah.
Do the jury duty. Come in there, sit down and hear the case.
Yeah.
And make that decision.
Yeah. I think I found a liking to it. Ironically, I was home watching the Trayvon Martin case. And I just think it was just like brilliant how would they the prosecutor, was it the prosecutor? In the Zimmerman case, where like his lawyers proved their case. I just think they did a better job at proving their case. Doesn't mean that Zimmerman was innocent, or in my opinion, it just mean like, I always think that, they always say it's about what you can prove.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not about what you did. It's
Right.
about what you can prove.
Right.
And I just felt like they did a better job at proving the case. And then when you look at the jurors, they were all women, if I'm not mistaken, in that particular case. So when I think about when I think about you running for judge, and I think about, what types of cases may be coming, because I don't think you kind of like went over it. It's going to be criminal. I just want people to know. It's going to be criminal cases, civil cases.
Civil. It could be criminal.
It could be criminal.
I could be assigned to the criminal division. I could be assigned to the civil division.
So it's still an assignment. So even though you're in that group, it's still an assignment
by the chief judge. The chief judge makes the decision as to once the attorney has been voted in by the people.
Yeah.
The chief judge decides where that particular judge, that new judge, will be assigned. Will it be juvenile? Will it be in juvenile? Will it be dependency or delinquency?
Delinquency.
Will it be unified court? And they generally say that for some seasoned judges. Will it be probate, where we deal with
people who pass away, estates and stuff like
guardianships?
Yeah.
Will it be family law? Our divorces, our child supports, all of that, or will it be civil, where we can do a whole plethora of different.
So in this race, we really don't know. You really don't know where you're gonna land.
I don't know where I'm gonna land, but wherever I land,
you're gonna be good.
It's gonna be good. I'm gonna be prepared. That's why I did it that way, because day one, I'm ready. I'm ready wherever.
Yeah, because you already practice in every facet of it, so it makes it easier transition from that role to being a judge.
Exactly.
I get it now.
I get it. And guess what? It will touch your life wherever I am.
Yeah.
Whether you want to buy a house, whether it's going to touch your life.
Everything, yeah. And another question, when I heard you talk about the unified judges earlier, is that going to the unified court, is that better? I don't know if the word is better or worse, but is it a good thing? Because
it is, because one judge then gets to hear all these different aspects. Because all of us are different. So my experience is different from your experience, and as a judge, if me and you are both judges, we're coming at it from a different mindset, right? So if I got to go to you because there's an issue that's dealing with the relationship between me and my husband, but then there's also a situation that's dealing with my child, and I got to go to a different judge with that. Now, all these things, they're all swirling. But in a unified court situation, one judge hears it all.
That's dope. I'm like learning a lot.
I just want to say this too. The judges' races are not the sexy races of the politics.
But I just want people to understand. That's why I'm asking the questions. That's why it's like, people get in interviews and they try to trip people up on what they stand for, what they're against, what they did. Me, I want to learn about. We've learned in this interview that you've practiced almost every facet, family, juvenile, criminal court, civil court. We've learned these different things, and I think people need to know that. And that's really what I want to get out of it.
Thank you.
Is that we don't even know where you're going to land, but at least we know, okay, she's been there before. And that's the most important, because a lot of times people, we don't know what these judges, we don't know their backgrounds. We don't, and that's what this was for, and I'm so happy I was able to provide the platform for you to do it.
I'm so happy you did too.
You know what I'm saying? Because you think you voting for a judge, and this, it's news to me. I think that I'm voting for a judge, and one, baby, it's just going to be in criminal. It's just going to be in civil, and we don't understand, you in Group 69, the chief judge, is the chief judge the person that's over the 11th judicial court? Is it that person, or is it somebody under them?
What happens is this, that the chief judge was elected or appointed, just like any other judge. But the judges themselves get together and they vote and that person becomes the chief judge based on the judge's vote. Just like with the county commission, there's a situation where one of the commissioners becomes the chair.
Okay.
And the
Okay,
commissioners vote.
Okay.
And that's exactly how the chief judge becomes the chief judge. The judges vote for that person to be the chief judge. And then when that person is the chief judge, they have administrative responsibilities. Those administrative responsibilities includes where the judges will be assigned.
Okay, now that makes sense. So they're like the chair of all the judges.
Right, and they're making sure that each area is covered. So we got manpower, in criminal court. We got manpower in civil court, so that none of those courts are lacking for a judge to be in them.
What is the biggest, this is another question, what is it, now that you just said that, when you talk about manpower, a lot of our people are held up in jail for a long time. Some of them just never been to court. Like, can you explain that process, like why that happens?
It should not happen that way. And anyone that's in a criminal situation where they've been incarcerated for 30 days, okay, they should have had an arraignment. Okay, 21 days you're supposed to have an arraignment, but it may go for good cause a little bit longer. But if there's been no good cause showing and they are still in custody after the 30th day and the state has not filed charges against them, there is a motion that should be made by the attorney so that by the 33rd day, they should be able to, for the most part, be out of jail without having to post a bond. And then they'll be able to, come back and still answer to the charges, but at least they're out of custody. Okay. Now, the other part of it is the bond hearing that we talked about a little bit earlier. That happens within 24 hours. And if it hasn't happened within, I think it's 48 hours or so, then that's another area where that person may be able to get out without having to post a monetary bond, because there's a lack that's happened with that. But there has to be due diligence. No one should be just lingering in jail. And that was one of the things that, as a supervisor in criminal court, I wanted to make sure that my people understood those nuances, because nobody wants to be in a situation where they're incarcerated and nobody's coming to see them. Nobody is doing anything for them. I was asked a question in one of the interviews about who was a judge that I admired. And I said, Judge Will Thomas. And I said that because I knew him as a lawyer. He worked in the public defender's office when I worked in the public defender's office. I knew him to work extremely hard. And that's what he did. And so when he became a judge, some people criticized him because he demanded much of the attorneys. But I knew that he demanded no more of the attorneys than he himself would have done. I got so angry with him one time. He made me go to trial the day before the 4th of July. July 3rd, right now. Made me go to trial, on a case I hadn't been paid on. I planned to withdraw out of that case because I had not been paid. But I went to trial and spent 10 hours that day in trial. My client ultimately was found not guilty, of course. But, he put the demand there. Not only was I having to work 10 hours the day before the 4th of July, but he was too. So I honor the work ethic. I honor the work ethic in it.
As a judge, do you support, what is it, no cash bail? Is it no cash bail?
I think that's something that has been going around.
But it's not passed.
The thing is this, I think that the law itself states that it should be the least restrictive form, because it should not be punishment. It should be to ensure that this person is going to come to court.
And I was just going to ask you, because a lot of times the bail be so high, and it'd be like, for some of these smaller cases, it'd be like, He just stole something out of the stove. I mean, it's bad, but it's like you can't even prove that he did it. Like, you know what I mean? And people be hemmed up in jail because they can't pay bail. Like,
so, there are just a few cases where a person can be held with no bond. But if that person can be held by bond, you know, they can receive a bond, then the factors have to come into play. Has the judge gone through the factors?
Yeah. What's
You know,
that? And what's
meaning,
the factors?
Are they a flight risk? Are they a danger to the community? You know, is there a danger to them being out on the street? You know, all those things come into play. And, you know, not seeing the case in front of me, I can't opine on it to say one way or the other how it would happen. But I think when you go through those factors, seeing the person in front of you, understanding where they're coming from, understanding the culture, understanding the nature, looking beyond the paper and seeing the person and what makes them tick, you'll come up with the right flow. You'll come up with the right bond.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you one last chance to close us out. I'm gonna move out the way so you can be directly in camera, okay? And let you tell the people why they should vote for you for judge and, you know, make your case.
All that I am, everything that I hope to be, I am a part of you. This is not just an individual accomplishment, it's a collective victory. Go out and vote. I urge you, look me up, my website, electbonita.com. See what I've done. See how I've been in the community. I'm not just here for right now. I've been here and I'm going to be here, no matter what the outcome of this is. But I believe that I can win this, but I need your help. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support. Look me up. Go on the website. Every Sunday at 5 p.m., I have a town hall where I'm ready to, on Zoom, sign up for it. Ask me the questions that you need answers for, and I'm going to do my best to answer them. I promise you that. I'll be prepared from day one. You won't waste your vote. Vote Bonita for Circuit Court Judge in this election, August 18th. Remember to go to the election website to make sure you're still on the rolls, that you're able to vote. Register to vote. That deadline is coming up soon. I believe it's July 20th for you to register to vote. Register to vote. Exercise that right. There was a lot that went into it so that you would have it. Don't lose it. Vote for Bonita.
And you heard it from her. Vote for Bonita. Okay? I can't tell y'all who to vote for. I can only put it out there. Let y'all heard from her all day. Y'all heard her pour her heart out. You heard who she is. I hope you get a better understanding of who she is and what she's about. And, you know, listen to the episode and you make the decision you need to make to do what we need to do and exercise our right to vote on August 18th. So, peace out. See y'all later.
I'm so proud of you, James. I'm so proud of you and all that y'all got going on here.
Hey, we try. We try.